Hello, hi everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are on the planet. I am Jade Levan from Tableau Public, and today I will be telling you about mastering dashboard actions. This will be a content-intensive session. It's an advanced training, so I hope most of you are not beginners, because we won't be going into details on how the charts were built. We will focus on interactivity. And of course, you can ask me questions at any point during this webinar by using the chat box or the Q&A box. I'm alone to answer your questions, so I will do my best. And if I cannot get back to you during the webinar, I will write down your email and answer later. This session should be recorded, and you will receive the material and the link to the video in the follow-up email. In this session, we will be covering actions, so the 3 types of actions that are available in Tableau. The first one is filter actions, and you will see that there are many ways to use them to declutter your dashboards or improve the user experience. You also have highlight actions and URL actions. I will finish by giving you some best practices with actions, because it might be a bit overwhelming. Once you know how to use them, you might be tempted to do lots of things with them. And the idea is that you should always use them for a reason. If we have time, we might also see some examples of great visualizations using dashboard actions. And I know the description of this webinar was mentioning embedding various elements into a dashboard. I decided to keep it for a second leg of the webinar, one that we might do in June or July, because it was too content intense otherwise. All right, so this said, let's move on to our example today. So we will be using a dashboard that's based on the height of humans over time. The design of this dashboard is to be credited to Andy Cribble, who tweets at VizWizBI, and it basically shows 3 elements. So these are the 3 elements that we will be using in all the dashboards that we create, and we will just change the interactivity to see how it impacts the design. This first map shows the height of people per country, and you can change a filter on sex, so men or women. It's not very interesting per se, but it's useful when you want to create interactivity, because then you can use the map as a filter on other charts. Then you have this graph, which shows the evolution country per country of the height of people. So the same, there is a gender element, and then all the lines are countries. And finally, there is this graph that shows how many centimeters have people grown over the past century. So this point shows how tall people were in 1896, and the last point shows how tall they are in 1996. And it's based on people aged 18. So they measure only people of the same age category in order to have a consistent measurement. So let's start with the first kind of filtering that you can use on the dashboard. It's very basic, but I'm not sure everyone knows about it yet. So when you have different elements like this, which all use the gender as a filter. If you remember, the map had gender here, or here. You can see it either on the side when I show them or in the filters box. They all have the filter for gender. But then, if I don't mention, if I don't configure the filter to apply to all the worksheets, it might only apply to one. That's because when I created my dashboard, I brought all the elements, and I didn't duplicate the filters for all the elements. So when you're in this situation, what you have to do is just to click on this little arrow here. When you select your filter, it will appear. And then you have the possibility to apply to worksheets You can select to apply to only one worksheet or a selection of worksheets if it's not supposed to be applied to all worksheets. This is often the case, for instance, if you have a filter on years, you might want to apply it on the map. That makes sense. But you wouldn't want to apply it on a line chart because you're trying to show time evolution. So if you filter on only 1 year, it will completely kill the line chart. So that's not what we wanted. What we want to do here is to apply it to all the graphs using this data source, because we saw that we need the gender filter on all the charts. So that's it. I just had to apply all using this data source, and now when I change, you will notice that all the graphs are updating at the same time. All right, so that was the first one. Very easy. We start easy and we're warming up. The next one is the one we all know, but in case there are a few beginners here, let's just show it again. When I brought my elements all together on this dashboard, they were not interactive. Like, this is the basic stuff. I just brought them from here, put them as I want, and there is no interaction yet. The easiest way to implement interaction in Tableau Public is to select one element. So when you select it, you see this gray frame around it. And then you can just click here on this icon that says Use as Filter, and suddenly your map will become a filter for everything. So that's great. That's what we've all used at the beginning because it's simple, like just one click and you have this great filter applying to all your charts, but it has its limits. So let's move on to another dashboard. So I will keep reusing, as I told you, the same elements. It may just vary in design with or without the map, choosing different charts, but it's only the 3 elements that we've seen. So here, let's try applying the Use as Filter trick here to see what happens. And here it completely kills my dashboard below, because the dashboard below was actually showing the evolution of height over time. So it's the same information, but shown in a different way. Here it's easier to read how many centimeters have people grown over a century. So for instance, the first bar, Latvia, it's 170 minus 150, and then you know that they've grown 15 centimeters. So here it's clearly a case where I cannot use as filter because it's not working. I will need something more refined that I can configure it on my own. So I'll just untick this Use as Filter icon here. And what I will do instead is create my own custom filter action. To do this, I will go to Dashboard, Actions, and here I have the choice between 3 types of actions. We're in the first part of this presentation, so we are focusing on filter, but this is the same place where you create highlight or URL actions. All right, so here we want to filter, and we want it to filter the top chart. We are almost all becoming taller. This will be our source sheet. We want that when we click on this first chart, it filters the second one. So the second one will be our target sheet. How much have people grown? That's the one. We want it to happen on selection, but you can notice here that when you customize your own filter actions or highlight actions, you have 3 options. Hover, which means that whenever I hover over a point, it will filter the other chart. Hover is good in some cases, but most of the time it will be too fast for your user to be able to interact properly. It will just become annoying. Here it would be especially the case as my lines are very close to each other, so it would be very difficult to make sure I'm interacting with the right line or to know with which line I'm interacting. The second option is Select, so it's basically a click, so that's the one I will use. And the last option we will see later, but Menu is is used to show a message in the tooltip. So for now, it's a select. And what I want to happen when I clear the selection, this is the last part I need to configure it in my action. I want that whenever I'm not selecting anything, the graph below will show all values. So I will just keep show all values. And then it will tell me, so far it's exactly the same as if I had done the dashboard action. True, it's the same. So it's the same as if I had done this. The difference here that I want to implement, let me go back to what I had, is that I will select fields and I will exclude, so I will keep only the selection on the country, which is one of the elements here common to the two, but I will get rid of the date selection. So to do this, I just go to target filters, and instead of all fields, I go selected fields, add filter, and here I can choose among various fields, and the one I'm interested in is country. So I select it, and it automatically selects country for the data, for the target data source as well. Click OK, OK. I can close all of this, and now when I select a line, it shows me, like it only filters on the country and it doesn't filter on the date, which was what I wanted. So perfect. You will, like, depending on what the data you have in your dashboard, you will be able to use this trick to filter in a custom way. Okay. Just checking the questions quickly. So if you have a question, I will make a quick pause between all of the charts, so that, like, between all of the dashboards, so that you can ask questions related to the one we just saw. And there's a question about how to get the data and the video. So this will be sent to you within a follow-up email that should be sent like less than a day after this training. Okay, if there are no more questions, I will keep going. So the next one will be a trick that will allow you to hide some elements from your dashboard. And this will be using exclude all values, something that we saw in the filter action creation menu, but that we didn't really try to test. So the idea here is that this graph is a bit ugly, and it's too small for me to be able to read anything. So what I want is that when I click on a point, I want this graph to be filtered on just the curve of the country I selected. And more importantly, I want this graph to disappear from the view whenever I'm not selecting any country. This is quite useful when you're trying to declutter a visualization that already contains lots of elements, or when you just want to keep things simple. To do this, I will again go to my dashboard actions menu to create it on a custom basis. So I go dashboard actions, add an action. Again, it will be a filter action because within this size of a chart, there is no way I can see more than a line. So I want to filter on one single line. It will be from the map to the line chart. And note that it can be useful for you to rename your sheets in a way that is easy to remember. So let's say here I have one map, one line chart, and one kind of a Gantt. So it might be helpful if I put like map, Gantt, and line chart, so that it's easier for me to realize which action I'm implementing. So it will be a select action again, because we don't want to get people nauseated with the hover action. So I select, and here is the important part. What I want now is that whenever I clear the selection, which means whenever I'm not selecting anything, I want this small chart to disappear. To do this, I will need to exclude all values, and if I do it now, so let me select my home country from which I'm speaking to you today, France. When I click on France, I see only the curve of France. So I see that French people have been growing quite steadily over the past 100 years, but it seems to be reaching a plateau since the 1980s. The increase of the height is slowing down. And now if I unselect, so to unselect, I either click on France or click anywhere, the graph disappears because I'm excluding all values. I should tell you that to do this, you should, whenever you bring your sheet to the dashboard, you will have to hide the title, because if I didn't hide the title, let me show you what happens. It would be this ugly. I would have the title staying here all the time, and then I would have my chart, and the title is taking some space, and it's not nice. So just hide your title when you're trying to make a sheet disappear, and you should be fine. And in case you still need some sort of title, you can create a custom title that will also be activated with a dashboard action. So I'll let you tell me in the chat if you'd like, if you're not comfortable with creating a title with this action, and I'll do it with you. Okay, so I have at least 2 people who are not comfortable with this small trick. So I'll do it with you. So what we need is create a new sheet, and then we will just add country in rows, country in text, and hide the header. The idea here is to have just the name of each of my countries as a text, and then I can edit the text a little bit. So I could make it height evolution. Sorry, I read the wrong one. Evolution of height in. So I'm making it in the first step. I will make it like this, and then I would probably need another calculated field so that this part doesn't show anytime. But let's do it first like this. So you see all my titles are here. And if I go back to this spreadsheet, so let me just rename this one title of line chart. I bring it, I float it, I will put it just above my line chart, hide the title. And so now I need to go back. For now, I will put it a bit above. Nothing is happening, and this is because I haven't yet filtered. Well, it did happen automatically. Yeah, whenever I added when I add a chart, it will automatically be included in the target sheets if I have already defined an action. So this is what's happening here. And so I could just put it above this one, make it smaller, a bit less, well, something like this. And probably fit entire view, something like this. And you see that now it will update automatically when I click on a country. I have evolution of height in the country, and then it's kind of a title of my chart. So that's an easy trick. If I was too fast, I'll just tell you again. So I created a spreadsheet. I just brought country to rows, and then I brought country to text. I hid this header, and then I edited my text to make it a proper title. I brought the spreadsheet here, floated it, and automatically it was included in the dashboard action that we had already put in place. And so I just had to reformat, resize my sheet so that it would be just on top of my graph and look like a title. All right. Yeah, people are getting worried that about this. I'm sorry if I'm going a bit fast, but it's just that yeah, we have a lot of content to cover, and there is no easy way to learn. I guess you will just you can review the video later and work on it at your own pace. Okay, so that was the trick of excluding all values so that you can have several charts on your dashboard without having it cluttered. Next one is an easy one. We will just see how highlight actions work. So for now, there is nothing. I don't want a filtering action because this kind of kills the whole context. Let's say I'm looking at China. If I get rid of all the lines, I have no idea if starting at 150 and ending at 160 is rather tall or rather small if I compare to the rest of the world. So this is why highlighting is sometimes a much better option. This is especially the case when you want to keep the context of your data. And this will be implemented very easily. There is no use as highlight button though, so this will always be through the dashboard actions part. So I go actions, add action, and here I will choose highlight. And this goes from my map to my line chart. For highlights, I can actually, okay, I'll show you both hover and select, and you can decide what you prefer. I could do it on hover, and then it would be like this. It's fast. Like if I know what I'm looking for, I don't have to click, it just moves. So France, okay, Ukraine, all right. If I did it on click on select, it would go select, and then oh, sorry, I guess I still have my filter on. All right. So if I did it on select, I don't know. Personally, I kind of prefer select because I feel like I'm more in control, and if my cat moves my mouse, I won't lose the country I'm on. But it really depends on your users and what you like as a person to consume on digital support platforms. And actually, the small mistake I did just now of leaving my filter on showed you one feature of actions, which is that there is priority in actions, and filter will always have priority over highlight. So if if here my use as filter is on, my highlight will be forgotten. And as soon as I untick my filter, my highlight action is back. It's a bit like multiplication and addition. Multiplication always wins over addition, and here filter always beats highlight. Okay. Checking the questions. Oh, sorry. Someone has asked something about the title before, and I didn't see it, so it's a quick one. Yeah, so it was a question about can I format the title, and the answer is yes. So if I select it here, or if I go back to my sheet, I always have opportunities and options to format. So let's say I want to, I don't know, this is not nice, but yeah, if I want to make it orange for some reason, am I touching the right one? That might be the header. I'll do it in my sheet, it's probably easier. So format, worksheet pane header, tooltip title. Oh, you know what? I'll just do it in text. It will be even easier. So I can just go back to my text, the one that I edited, and I can make it big. I can put my country in orange if I want. I can make it big Tableau bold font, and it will not fit anymore, but it will be formatted. All right. Okay, so for the highlight actions, did we have any question? Do we have to protect the data from recalculating the graph to only one selection? I'm not sure I understood the question. Protect the data. If Joanna, if you can reformulate this question, I'm happy to answer, but I'm not sure I'm understanding it. Okay. So one more trick I will show you is how to navigate between dashboards using actions. It's a bit of it can be useful, even though it needs a bit of thinking ahead, like a bit of design ahead. But it's easily implemented by using a filter action that will lead you to another dashboard when you click on one element. So if I could actually show you an example of how it looks, because I'm afraid if I don't give you context, you will not really see what's the use of this. So I'll find you this this dashboard made by a French user about the Festival de Cannes, which is ongoing. And so she has several dashboards in this that she wants to navigate between. And so if it hasn't changed, there should be a way. Nope, not this one. She evolved. Let me see the old version. Okay, let's go to the old version. All right. So you will see that here on each of the small thumbnails mentioning the content of the various dashboards contained in this workbook, there is a small play icon like you have in YouTube. And so it's clever design because you're very tempted to click on it. And when you click on it, it opens another dashboard. So let's see how we can implement this, and hopefully we don't always have to open a new tab for this. So this will be again in the dashboard menu, actions. See that there is already an highlight, but this is not doing anything. So dashboard actions. I will add another action to this highlight. There is no restriction on the number of actions, so feel free to add more if you need to. Here it will be a filter action. I will rename it later because you will see it won't be clear enough if I leave it like this. So it's an action that would go from my map to another dashboard, and that's the trick. You need to select another dashboard so that your source is an element of your current dashboard and your target is a completely different dashboard. This should be done on menu, because otherwise it's very confusing for the user. And you can leave the filter, that's not a problem. All right. So let's see what happens now that I've created this navigation to another dashboard thing. Remember that I did the menu option. So far we had seen hover, clicking, and we hadn't seen the menu. That's what that's what the menu option looks like. You will have this small URL looking link inside your tooltip. Here it's not very clear. If I'm just saying filter to, and I share this with a colleague or a friend, there is no way they will know what I'm trying to do here. So this is why we will go back into our dashboard actions menu. I will double click again on my filter to that I created, and this time I will give it a proper title. I will title it, go to dashboard, and the name of my dashboard is linked, whatever. If it was a real use case, it would be the title of the dashboard I'm trying to send people to. Okay. So now when I click on a country again, my highlight action goes on, and I have my menu here that lets me click. And when I click, I arrive on this other dashboard, which is my target dashboard. here, due to the restrictions, I wanted to use only one workbook. We're still seeing the same kind of things, but trust me, it's a different dashboard. And the problem now is that because we came in through this one, and I clicked on Portugal, and it was a filtering action, now it seems that my lower chart is blocked on Portugal. So whatever I click, nothing is happening. This leads me to tell you about another trick, and you will have this workbook posted as in addition to the video, so all the tricks that are written on the right side, you will also have access to them. The trick is that I will need to create a reset button so that I can cancel this filter that is locked. To create my reset button, it's very similar to what we did for the title of the line chart. I just created a calculated field that's called Reset All Filters, and that contains the text, click to reset all filters. So if I was to do that again, create calculated field, reset button, for instance, to name it differently. I don't need this. And this would be the message that I want displayed, so click in order to reset, for instance. And then I did the same thing. I put the reset on button on text. And to make it look more like a button, I have this circle going on. So it could be plain text, but I decided to go circle and to have the circle as a physical button. And then what I did is that I brought, sorry, I'll do it again. I brought this worksheet here, and I floated it. And I hit the title, and here I have my reset button, but it's not working because I haven't added any action to this reset button. So what I need to do now is to find a way to make this reset the countries here so that my bottom line chart will be able to interact normally and not be locked due to the previous source chart. So to do this, it's another dashboard actions, because that's what we're talking about today. And so actions, add action filter, it's a filter action. And I can, yeah, as of starting now, I will rename it. I will rename all of my actions properly because that's actually a best practice that I want to share with you at the end. So I will call it activation of reset button. The source sheet will be the reset button because I will click on this one. So I will select the reset button. And then I want that when I select the reset button, it shows all values for my bottom chart that has been locked on one filter. So the target sheet will be where we are almost all becoming taller. And the selected field is my country, because if you remember on the source dashboard that led us to this target dashboard, it was a map with no date included anywhere. So it's only filtered by country. Okay, so let's see what happens when we do this. Let's see if this activation of our reset button worked by clicking on it. And victory, we now have our full line chart with all the countries. And so let's see if our highlight action is working. Yes, it is. So that's a pretty neat trick. I know it's kind of difficult when you see it for the first time, but I'm sure that if you remember this trick and if you download the workbook that you will receive and you try it again and again, you will soon be able to master it and to implement it on other dashboards. Hi everyone. Sorry, someone is telling me that the sound is not really good. So can you just confirm if you're hearing me properly? And you can also ask me questions. I'm taking this in between tricks break. Okay, thanks. Cool. So I'm sorry. So that's Sonia. Sorry. Any questions meanwhile? Okay, cool. Okay, thank you for the heads up. I didn't notice that the sun had cut. All right. So we're done with the linking to other dashboards tip. Now let's see some URL actions. This is the last type of actions that we haven't brushed on yet. And so I will show you how it works, and we will do one test, but it's really up to you to try on other things as well, because the possibilities are infinite. And so what we will do, because we're still using this dashboard, so we don't have a whole variety of stuff that we can do with this, but we do have countries in this data set. And so one thing that might be interesting would be to show a Wikipedia page of the country whenever we click on a point. That would be nice. So how to do this? For now, we don't have in our dataset any column that contains the URL for Wikipedia. I'll show you the dataset. Oh, oops. We do have, but that's because I will just delete it because that's a calculated field. And okay, so we've gotten rid of Wikipedia. Yeah, so you see, for now we don't have anything regarding a Wikipedia URL. But the good thing about Wikipedia is that all Wikipedia searches contain the same elements. Like there is always the same route to any Wikipedia page that you consult in English. It should all start with. I'll show you. So let's say it should all start with this, and then the name of the country. So let me try with France. Works. Let me try with Spain. Works. China. Cool. So this is good. It means that I will be able to use this route and concatenate it with the country name, and then it will create a URL that doesn't yet exist in my dataset and that I can then use for implementing some URL action. So let me create a calculated field somewhere. So I go back to any of my sheets, it doesn't matter, and I create a calculated field. I will call it Wikipedia URL. And to concatenate in Tableau, first I need to put my string of character, HTTPS, etc. between the two dots. And then I need to concatenate with a plus. So careful, people who are used to working with Excel. In Tableau, you concatenate with a plus. And now I bring my country field here at the end. And if I look at what's inside my dimension now, the trick is you right-click on a dimension, you go describe, and then you load it. And you see that it's created a full, like a column, a dimension that contains all the Wikipedia URL for countries. Cool. So what do I need to do now? Remember, I want to be able to reach the Wikipedia page of a country whenever I click on it on the map. So I will just need to add my Wikipedia URL somewhere in the map so that it's here somewhere in the view, even if it's not showing. And then we will be able to do this URL thing. So I take my Wikipedia URL, I put it on details, It won't show, but it will be here somewhere in the view, like Tableau will be able to compute it. And then, yeah, that's fine. It's not showing anywhere. Now I go back to this dashboard. And so it will be done in 2 steps. First, I need to bring in a web page object in my dashboard. So when you're on a dashboard, you have this object section on the bottom left with various elements, and one of them is a web page. If I bring my web page here, and I leave it empty for now, it will just give me this white space that's useless at the moment. And then that's when it becomes interesting. If I go back to my dashboard actions menu, I will create this URL action. It starts from my map. I will do it on select this time. It's not necessarily a good practice. Again, I can show you the difference between having it in the menu and in the select. But here, because it's taking so much space, so much white space on my page, I would rather that something happens immediately when people click and that they don't have to go through menu and understanding that there is a URL and they need to click on it. And so for the URL, I just go here and all the dimensions and measures that are inside my view, inside my map view are here, and so is the Wikipedia URL. And I can just go ahead and say, okay. I can actually test it for you. I test it. My URL is valid. So if I validate it, now let's click on Russia. Russian Federation might be a bit difficult because it's not the current name of the country. But if I go Philippines, if I go China, then it's working. So you will tell me it's not really great because it's all crammed. I don't have enough space here on my dashboard. True. This is because I have used the normal Wikipedia page, not the one adapted for mobile phones. If you notice, this is kind of the same format as a mobile phone. So what I can do is go back to my calculated field, and you will see that to get to the mobile phone view, it's actually pretty simple. I'll show it to you first on my browser. I add an M dot between EN dot and Wikipedia. When I do this, it will be a long view, kind of like what you expect on mobile. So let me change that in my formula. I add this M dot here. And so now, yeah, when I click on a country, I didn't even do it on purpose. I clicked on France, and on the US it works as well. You see that it's a long format, so it's much better for my dashboard. So this is just one example of what you could do with URL actions. Actually, it's really up to you to try whenever you notice that you could, like you have a common route to some web pages. It can be on a website, it can be a Google search, it can be anything that starts with the same route or contains the same elements that you can combine with some of your fields, and then you will be able to bring in many more URL elements to your dashboard. Okay, so this is what I had to you in terms of tricks, in terms of walkthrough. So what I will do now is pause for checking your questions and then share some best practices. And finally, we can go and see some actions-intensive dashboards that have been created in Tableau Public and that you will be able to download and study. So, okay, catching up on questions. There was a question, can we reset filters and go back to original dashboard in the same action? So I understand that you're thinking of this one. Let me think about it for a second. So that would mean it wouldn't really make sense, right? If when I click on my reset button, it goes back to the other one. So I guess you could. You would have to create 2 different actions to do it. But what might be interesting would be to link back with some, what I could do would be to use maybe an arrow that says go back to previous dashboard, and this one I would make the opposite, the opposite actions from here. So it will go from the arrow to this dashboard. So yeah, it's possible. Okay, other questions? Is it still the case that if more than one web page URL action is used on a dashboard, each action will open in the same window? It wasn't, as far as I know, it wasn't possible to force different URL actions to open in different windows. So there is, I have a trick for this. I will share you. So you will need to do it in the embed code. I will just share it in the Q&A part to you and also to the rest of the participants. Unfortunately, I don't have much time to explain this. This is very specific, but this iframe embed will allow you to open any URL action that you have in your dashboard in a different tab. So once you publish in public, the URL action, so this one, when I click on a country, instead of opening here, it would open in another tab, which would allow me, for instance, to have a short video or another thing embedded that would be static and that won't be impacted by my URL action. Sorry for anyone who's not very familiar, that's a very, very specific question. Okay, another question. My dashboard actions don't work when I include them in a story. Can you demonstrate how to make this work? Yeah, sure. I'm not sure why they shouldn't work, because for me they do. Okay, that was not a good example. Can you be more specific on which action is not working? Because for me, I've never had this problem. As proven here, my filter action works. I can try with a highlight action, and I'm pretty sure it should work. So I'm not sure exactly what's happening. We can have a private discussion later on. Okay. Did you create a redundant field and drag it to circle shape? With the reset button you created, did you create a redundant field and dragged it to circle shape? No, I just, so it's a bit like my title. I put reset all filters, brought it as text. So I was in this configuration. And then instead of text, I changed it to circle, and I made it top center so that my legend, my instruction would be above my button. But I didn't really, I didn't drag it on a circle shape. Can we link to a specific spreadsheet stored on the computer? No, you won't be able to link to anything on your computer. You will have to publish it to some online service like Dropbox, and then you can link to your sheet on your Dropbox. Question from someone on whether it's a good practice to jump from dashboard to dashboard with the action that we just saw, and is it better than using story points? I'm not sure. I think I prefer the story points when there is really like a continuity and a direction to your story, because the dashboard jumping, like it can be very messy. Like you don't really know exactly what's the order of the dashboard. So I think it would take a lot of design thinking to implement something that's user-friendly, while the story is just made for it, and it will just let you guide the person through your story. Okay, someone is asking something that makes total sense. Instead of having me reread the questions, you could actually all post them in the chat and not in the Q&A. So yeah, that's a good practice that I will do for my next webinars. So just post it to all participants in the chat box, and then everyone is able to see it and they know what we are talking about. Another question, can you use the URL action to link to a web page, not to a dashboard? Yes, of course, you could do that. let me think of an example. I cannot think of one specific workbook that's on Tableau that I can show you now. Oh well, this is an example. I clicked on this little action button, and it opened a video. Well, the video seems to have been withdrawn, but it's opening something that's outside of Tableau. All right, so that was a good amount of questions. Let me go back quickly to the best practices that I wanted to share with you. Because now that you have all these new skills, you need to use them the right way. So first, I'd like to share 3 tricks with you. The first one is to always give intelligible, understandable names to your actions and sheets, so that when you are in your action menu, you know what you're talking about. And I actually have some examples of pretty action-intensive dashboards to show to you. So this is my attempt to replicate the Economist Big Mac Index last year. I'll show you the original. It's something like this. You hover over a country. It changed from a scatter plot to a line chart. And then if you select it, the line chart stays. And you can click on the dot, and it will change the dates here and here. So it's a lot of actions going on. So I actually tried to replicate it, and as you expect, there are quite a lot of stuff going on. 4 actions, that's actually not too bad compared to the whole lots of stuff that are happening on my dashboard. But clearly, if you are, it was a bit of a headache because stuff, like each stuff impacts something else. So for instance, this one impacts everything, including this one, but it's not obvious because until I don't select a month, this one won't show. So it's, yeah, you need to think a bit of it, and you need to design it in advance. But when you're doing some debugging, it will be really helpful if you have given the right names to your actions and to your sheets, because you will know what you're talking about. My second tip is to map your actions in advance. So this is showing the same Big Mac index that I was just sharing with you. When I was designing it, I first studied the Economist one, the Economist version. And then I mapped what I wanted to replicate in Tableau. So you see all my elements, my map, line chart, scatter plot, bar chart, and the small text that appears. And then it shows you, like, the arrows show different kind of actions. The dotted arrow shows highlighting action. So when I click on a country on my map, it highlights the country on the scatter plot and on the bar chart, as you see, highlighted, highlighted. And then I have a second action, which is filtering the line chart on the selected country. And that's also filtering the text description, but it's invisible because I'm only giving it the country and not the month, the date that it needs. So this is my second action, filtering, do it again, filtering, filtering. And then I have 2 more actions that couldn't be made, that couldn't happen in the same action. That's why I have 4 actions in total, because one is excluding all values. I want this part to disappear whenever I'm not selecting any date and country. So it's an exclude all values kind of filter, while this one is a show all kind of filter, where when I have no date selected, I still want the bar chart to show a default date. And this is what happens here. So that's my tip to you, very important. Map it in advance, try to make it user-friendly. If you draw it, you can replicate it in Tableau, but if you're just trying, like experimenting, it might become very complicated if you don't have a clear roadmap beforehand. And the last tip is to make sure that the fields you're trying to filter on are present in both your source sheet and your target sheet. That's often the problem when you see that you're trying to implement some action and nothing happens. it's usually that you forgot to add, for instance, the URL in your map, in the example we saw earlier. And that's why your URL is not, your URL action is not doing anything. Okay. And on the don't side, so things that you shouldn't do, even though now you have the power to create crazy interactive dashboards, try to not use more than probably 6, I would say. It's just a random number, but just don't make it too complicated. And always make sure that you give the right instructions. So in my case, I tried to explain a little bit to the user how they should use the dashboard. If we go back to The Economist, I'm pretty sure they're also giving a bit of heads up on how to, user guide. So there are various ways to make your user familiar with the way to interact with your map, with your dashboard. Always make sure to include this TD bits of insight into your work. Another example of how to explain how to interact with your map would be to create a button, so exactly like the reset button, except that here I use it to put a tooltip on the button, and that's what shows in the tooltip, so instructions. So you have tons of ways to make your dashboard more user-friendly. Just make sure you do it. And to conclude, I will send you the link to this viz by Shine Pulikatara in the link, because it's crazy, it's really good. And I let you open it and tell me how many actions you think there are in this dashboard. So I just send the link over. And if you cannot open it yet, I'll just do it. I'll just play with it so that you see what happens. Try to guess how many actions there are in there, and just put it in the chat box. Someone says 5. Not too bad, yeah. But that's not the right answer, but that's a fair guess. So let me play a bit with it so that you see what's happening. That's quite a tricky question. I'll just open it for you. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 filtering actions and 2 highlight actions. And the good news is that Shine's dashboard is downloadable online. So if you just, in case you don't know that Tableau public workbooks are often downloadable, I'll show you how to download it. So when you're on a Tableau public visualization, you can either go here or at the very bottom, download the workbook. And then if the author has let the workbook as downloadable, then you should be able to get it. So that's how I actually got it on my computer. I just downloaded it, and I have the whole visualization, the whole design available, and I can then go inside all the sheets and understand how he did it. So that's a really good way to learn. So the hour that we had together is over. I hope it was very useful for you. I'm sure it will require a bit of practice for you to be able to implement what we saw today together. You have my email address. No, you have my Twitter account here. I can send my email address in the chat box. Feel free to send questions if you're working on a project and you're tearing your hair because of it. I'll do my best to answer.